It is unlike any courtroom you've ever seen. It's called a problem-solving court, operating right here in Jefferson County, the most successful intervention in our country's history for leading veterans and citizens alike out of the justice system and into lives of recovery and stability. For the next 30 minutes, we'll go inside the courtroom to show you how our court system is innovating and instead of dealing out punishment, is offering treatment and compassion. Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Conversation. I'm Mark Koebrich, and we have a fascinating look for you today at a court that you may not even know existed and is doing tremendous good for the people who have given so much for our country and have often suffered greatly as a result. Our guest today, from left to right, Judge Margie Inquist, who is the first judicial district judge, also known by many attorneys in the county as the Hammer, I am told, but I made that up just because, attorneys talk, but I know that's not true. You show great compassion in court. Welcome to the program. Great, wonderful to have you. Joseph Ellis, who's the Veterans Treatment Court Mentor Coordinator, a peer mentor coordinator, former military. You served in? In the Army. Well, thank you for your service, Joseph. Thank you. Thanks for being here today. And Nathan Vitton, he's our veterans guy in court. The way the court works, and you'll see in the piece we're about to show you, that when problems come up and when there's discussions around programs for veterans, then Nathan is the guy who jumps in. Nathan, welcome to you. And many of you will probably recognize Mark McIntosh, who is a refugee from Channel 4. He was the sports reporter and anchor there for many years, and now he's left the dark side. He has a reputable job in the community. And Mark, as always, great to have you.
Thank you.
And he is a board member, a Jeffco board member, and a big supporter of the courts. Thank you for being here today. But first, and we're going to talk to all of these nice people, but first of all, Judge Inquist gave us a huge opportunity to observe inside her courtroom, which is sometimes rare for the media to get this kind of access. But we wanted you to have a look at her Veterans Problem-Solving Court, which is being hailed as one of the most successful interventions in our nation's history for leading people living with substance abuse and mental health disorders out of the justice system and into lives of recovery and stability.
All rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America.
It is unlike any court you have ever seen. From the Pledge of Allegiance at the opening of the session,
with liberty and justice for all,
to the applause and calls of congratulations.
Keep it up. I mean, you're doing very well.
As participants take their turns talking to the judge.
All right, let's get started. Tyler.
And as for the judge in this court, she adds to the unusual demeanor of the proceedings by encouraging and offering guidance to her often troubled caseload. Judge Margie Inquist has a firm hand, but clearly a big heart for broken vets.
You're sober, you're working, you're putting a lot of effort into this.
I'm just happier.
Tyler Barker is a star in court today. His recovery has taken hold, beginning 18 months ago from a jail cell, sentenced for distribution. This after long service to his country. But now,
18 months of sobriety off of meth, alcohol, and weed. It's a complete change. I mean, back then I was 180 pounds, skin and bones, and now I'm 220 and feel amazing.
Tyler credits the support court and his mentor, Carl LaFaro, with his success. LaFaro is former military as well and says the courts understand soldiers like Tyler.
He looked like a bad dude on paper. But the thing is, that's not who he is in real life. And I think that he really came into the court making a commitment to change and worked really hard.
All of them work at hitting goals. Damien, for example, is another success story on this day.
How'd you do with your goals?
I think I had two goals. One was to stay clean and sober, and the other one was to be good to my family, my roommates. I do believe I obtained both those goals, to include going to treatment, Your Honor. Right now I have 385 days sober from methamphetamine and cocaine.
And you should know, they are allowed to make mistakes.
It's not a zero tolerance. It's a very different approach to justice than I've experienced before, where it's about treating the illness. It's about about recovery rather than perfect behavior. But if a veteran makes a mistake and is honest about it, he or she will get the treatment they need to prevent that mistake from happening again.
However, Judge Inquist gently lets them know there are lines.
when you come in, it feels like whatever I say, you're going to argue or come up with a reason why you can't do it. Just hear me out. Instead of saying, you know what, I'm going to find a way to do that. And we know that you can find a way to do that.
And when they do find their way, they are rewarded in court for good performance. They draw chips for gift cards or event tickets, something else you would never see in a typical court of law. A court that finally is making a significant difference in the lives of those who put it all on the line for their country. So that gives you a good idea of how the Veterans Support Court works, pretty much unlike any courtroom I've ever been in as a reporter for a lot of years, and doing an awful lot of good for a lot of people. And Judge Inquist, I'd like to start with you. How do you end up as the judge of the Veterans Support Court?
We noticed in our county and in our district that we were seeing an increasing number of veterans who were incarcerated in our county jail and who were becoming involved in the criminal justice system. And that was largely related to challenges that they were dealing with related to post-traumatic stress, traumatic brain injuries, and other physical and emotional injuries resulting from war. We knew that there were veterans treatment courts out there and that we could do a better job in serving that population. So we researched them, implemented our court in 2014, and since then I've had the privilege of and honor of presiding over that court.
And suddenly they're in all the larger counties in Colorado and all seeing the same success that you are here in Jefferson County.
Exactly. Yeah. They're a very effective means of dealing with those issues, getting those veterans treatment, holding them accountable. It's not a free pass, so it's not a get out of jail free card. In fact, it's a more challenging program than regular probation, but at the end of the day, we see lives restored and health restored.
You show great compassion for them. Observing in court, I was very impressed with that, because these are some guys who have hit, many of them, rock bottom and are just looking for a way back up.
Exactly. They just need the tools and the resources to be able to turn their lives around and get that self-esteem back and become the honorable military, personnel that they were.
Right, exactly. So Joseph, I'm wondering, where do you get these guys? How do they? I know in our story we talked about Tyler Barker, who was a wonderful success story, and actually heard about the program when he was in jail. Didn't even know that it existed, and asked about it, talked to his attorney about it, and suddenly there he was in court, and he's this marvelous story now, and he's a guy who's actually looking at being a mentor as he exits the court, but he's had great success with it. But I was wondering, how is that that can't be the only place where you find these guys. How do you go about recruiting them into the courtroom?
The participants themselves sort of end up recruiting themselves. They end up in the criminal justice system for whatever reason, and then it's our duty then to work with them and try to stand beside them and provide the resources that they need to, as you say, crawl back up from rock bottom. I think I have the best job on the staff in the court because I get to be more of a friend to these guys, more of a companion. We do hold them accountable as we would friends, but we get to walk beside them through their journey in recovery. Yeah. So I think some of these guys are jealous at times because the hammer has to be more strict.
Oh, you're done now. Now it's going to stick for sure.
She has to be more strict. She has to impose sanctions. Sometimes Nathan has to call people on their bull, quite frankly.
Right, exactly.
But my job is primarily to listen and do what I can to support. So. I get to be a bit of the softer side, I guess.
I know a lot of them turn to you. I've noticed that in my visits to court. A lot of them seek you out. And how great a guy is Carl Alfaro, who was in our story, who is Tyler's mentor. Just a terrific guy, and as dedicated as you are, and former military as well, and he gets it.
Carl is one of my heroes in the world of mental health treatment and recovery in general. He's just a fantastic guy who everyone seems to know, so it's an honor to sort of walk in his footsteps. He carried the position that I'm in prior to my coming on board, and recruited some really solid mentors that have been there for a long time, and who do a Carl made my job easy. So I love the guy.
Yeah, he's a great guy.
Yeah.
And actually, you have a courtroom full of people who have really stepped up for these people. And Nathan, you're in court for every session, and you're the guy. As Joseph mentioned, these guys they don't get off easy. They have to stick with the program. So are these, what is it? They're in there every 3 weeks or every 2 weeks? I was trying to figure out. Are they all on the same schedule?
So they're not. So. Best practices for a treatment court says that we see people kind of less and less as we get closer to graduation to try and kind of test the waters for full independence. So it's a 4-phase program. Phase 1's every week, 2 every other, 3 every third, and 4 every fourth week. And within those phases, there are different expectations of performance, not missing UAs, having all clean UAs at a certain point. We really try and target honesty first. So for instance, when you first come into the court, we don't necessarily expect your UAs to be clean.
We're talking about urine analysis. No, that's right. That's okay. It took me a minute to figure out what they were talking about in court when I was sitting there. So I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Drug testing, yeah. And so we try and kind of set a pattern where they can come into court and be honest about use. And things aren't working out, and I'm trying things at this level of care. I think I need a higher level of care, and we don't have to incarcerate them, and we don't have to sanction them with, less friendly sanctions. We do treatment sanctions where we'd say, okay, well, things aren't working out at this level, so your sanction this week is to explore residential treatment. And then my non-court activity would be to help identify appropriate treatment, connect them to appropriate care. We have really great partnerships for veterans who aren't able or don't want to come to the VA. Some veterans aren't a fan of it. I like to think that we are able to do really solid care through the VA. We have a great continuum of residential, outpatient, transitional housing programs. The homeless program at the VA has been fantastic to work with the courts, with all the courts. But if they are dead set against VA, we're able to partner with JCMH and probation, which is really a cornerstone of the program as well. Has been amazing at marshaling their resources for therapy and care and UAs and opportunities for recovery.
It's amazing the number of programs that you have to choose from. All of them acronyms, which I've been trying to sort out as you guys fly through these. Yeah. DMI, PVR, OT, whatever they are. Over the counter. I don't know. I was trying to sort it all out. The veterans clearly know what you're talking about, though, and it is remarkable. I've heard you mention at least 9 different programs that, and I'm sure that was just by my count, that are available to these guys as they go through the program.
Yeah. So one of the great things about the VA is that we have a national program, and so we have access to programs from Boston to South Dakota to California, and we're really able to target the specific needs of each veteran who comes into the program. So many veterans have post-traumatic stress disorder in concert with their substance use. You could say they're self-medicating. And we actually have specific residential and outpatient programs that target treating PTSD and substance use at the same time. Historically, we tried to get people sober and then do PTSD care, and what we were doing is just kind of removing the self-medication as poorly as it was working, and it was kind of getting really bad, and it was a bad cycle of failed treatment. So we're having a lot better luck using our dual diagnosis programs, kind of feeding right into outpatient support, supported housing, pro-social activities, which are all able to kind of marshal through the court. VA and non-VA have done really well to be successful before their justice involvement, they really weren't getting an opportunity to use these opportunities.
Yeah. Exactly. I know, Mark, you also are always trying to encourage these guys to get involved in programs outside of the court. But we should talk about fundraising because I was wondering what bake sale you were standing at last weekend trying to raise funds for the court, because you're a good salesman, I know. And then I find out you actually are a burrito salesman.
We do. Court Support Jeffco is the nonprofit that was formed to support the 7 problem-solving courts, of which Vet Court is one of the 7. And so Court Support Jeffco, our job is to go out and raise awareness and raise money to support, like Nathan was talking about, when these guys go off to a residential care facility or whatever, sometimes we help get them there, the transportation and such, or we raise money to provide incentives to get gift cards from King Soopers or whatever, to continue to try to encourage these guys and help them on their road to recovery. And so we have a big, our annual breakfast is coming up on May 9th. If anybody out there would like to go, they can get in touch with me. It's called Partners in Recovery. It's the morning of May 9th. We sell burritos at the courthouse. We have collaboration with a lot of restaurants in Jefferson County that will have a day where a percentage of the proceeds of what they sell that day will go to Court Support Jeffco. There's a variety of ways people can just make a donation. courtsupportjeffco.org, if anybody's curious about that.
I was going to give you your phone number, but maybe that's better.
Yeah, courtsupportjeffco.org.
Yeah. Okay.
And then another way, and I just celebrated a birthday, and on Facebook, you know, everybody knows your birthdays that are your friends, right? And
yes,
so
right.
you can designate a nonprofit that you're raising money for on your birthday and raise $500 just by people making a donation to Court Support Jeffco. So if there's anybody out there that is passionate about what we're doing, it's your birthday on Facebook.
It's your birthday.
Have them give the money
And by the way, happy birthday at 79. You're still going. You
well,
look terrific. I got
and
to say, you're so
for the
well
record,
preserved.
I spent 4 years on the brighter side of things at Channel 9,
Yes, you
co-hosting
did. That's
Colorado
right.
and Company.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did. Yes, you did. And good for you. And by the way, you mentioned the other courts, and I should have mentioned those as well, because this remarkable court is just one of several. So, and correct me if I'm wrong, but there is a recovery court, an adult drug court.
Correct.
Right? There's the Veterans Treatment Court, which is the Veterans Support Court, a mental health court for adults, a mental health court for juveniles, a family drug court, and a child support court. So all of these support courts, they don't necessarily work in concert with each other, but they're all largely the same concept.
Correct. Other than the Child Support Enforcement Court, which helps to provide parents with the ability to pay their child support, so resources that they may need, work boots, things like that, so they can go out, get a job, support their children. All the other courts are primarily treatment courts. So we focus on treatment, resources for treatment, including inpatient, outpatient, all the pro-social activities that we find really help participant success. So the rest of us work together through the support of our nonprofit to make those connections for treatment and for pro-social resources. We find that all of our participants, when they give back to the community, really benefit from that as well. So, you know, give back after they've, you know, gotten involved in the criminal justice system or the juvenile justice system.
Right. We were discussing this earlier, that whenever I talk to veterans, they have a pretty common complaint, and these are veterans who are gainfully employed with families. They came out of their service, resume normal life. They say, every time you guys do a story about homeless people, you show the guy standing there with his sign that says, "I'm a vet," because it's a hook. People have a soft spot for vets. But in fact, veterans, and by and large, there's 50,000 of them a night, according to the latest figures from our friend Scott Hefty, who is here from the Lakewood Court, who, by the way, does a terrific job with the Veterans Court in Lakewood as well. And I'm sorry we didn't have another chair, but it would have been a barn fire because, you know, Scott he's never quiet, as you know. But
correct.
But he's here and he does a great job. But there's 50,000 of these guys on the street every night across the country. But there's more than 500,000 homeless. So they're a piece of the population, but they're not the entire population. But in fact, according to some of the numbers about veterans, veterans are less likely to be incarcerated than non-veterans by population. The number of veterans incarcerated in state and federal prisons between 2004 and 2012 has declined, dramatically declined. Tragically, though, too many veterans are still coming into contact with the justice system due to treatable conditions. And as we saw in this piece, there are serious conditions there. You deal with drug addiction, PSD, as Joseph mentioned. You have guys who have medical problems, legal problems, personal problems, broken families. I know that a lot of them are dealing with that. So it's no small thing. It's a very high degree, a very large level of difficulty, you might say, to bring these guys back to a more normal existence.
Correct. And when you were talking about screening into the court, research shows that we should only accept the highest risk and highest need people. So that's the group that we focus on, and they do have high needs that we need to fulfill. And it takes a community and it takes a village to support those individuals.
Exactly. And I also had a lot of them tell me, you know, when I left the military, they say, all of a sudden I'd lost my support systems. And there's also a lot of research that is linking these substance abuse disorders particularly, not only to their military experience, but to the lack of this support system in the military. And Joseph, I'll bet you can speak to that. These guys, there's a command system, there's a rigorous daily schedule, there are calendars and dates and places to be, but suddenly, the minute they're out, all of that structure disappears, and that's difficult for a lot of veterans.
It is, and I think that's one place we can do a much better job is educating them on the resources that are going to be available once they separate from their service. Like Nathan was saying, so many of them turn to self-medication. They don't really know any other way. So they've not been taught any other way. And so that's one of the things that we get to do is really educate them on the resources that are out there. I'm surprised how many veterans I run into that don't know 98% of the things they can take advantage of through the VA, through nonprofits, that could really help where they're at. You know, it's a hyper tough guy, hyper masculine sort of culture. They don't want to ask for help. They're very prideful. They're used to being told where to go, when to sit, when to stand. And then when you get away from that and problems start to compound in the family and the finances and things like that, these are not guys and gals that traditionally ask for help.
Right, they don't reach out.
Right, and so I think part of what we need to do is educate them before they separate on the fact that it's okay to ask for help. The fact that there are so many resources out there that truly want to help them, and that it's okay to take advantage of those. It's okay to admit you have a mental health disorder, just like it's okay to admit you have cancer.
Right.
Nathan, can you put in a plug for the Community Resource Center on Santa Fe for those who are not even criminally justice involved?
Yeah, absolutely. So, we're trying more and more to your point of getting different points of intervention for people in need. We're trying to marshal as many different kinds of resources in one location as possible. So here in the Denver metro area, the VOA Bill Daniels Center has multiple agencies. VOA has extensive services available, but also everything from Honor Bell to the VA's homeless program are all kind of located right at that location at 1247 Santa Fe in the Art District. And it's open Monday through Friday. It's kind of a day shelter in many aspects. You know, you can come and take a shower. There's no mail drops, but we have multiple different resources there. You can file for a claim, talk to DU Law.
Oh, really?
Monthly, there's
and it's
a
a walk-in?
legal clinic.
It's just a walk-in?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a walk-in, 1247 Santa Fe. And, you know, it's just got a whole myriad of resources there. Everything from, you know, VA, where I'm from, where we have transitional housing, help cook you up with health care, great permanent housing program called HUD-VASH that's been really successful with helping veterans get into permanent housing across the country. But also those non-VA resources. VOA has a VA grant called SSVF, Supportive Services for Veterans and Families. If you're a veteran who's looking at losing housing or a veteran who needs help getting into housing, it's a one-time grant. There's also case management services to help maintain that. There's also the state veteran services are at that location. So we try and put everything we could think of in one spot, and VOA has been an amazing partner to work with. So the Bill Daniels Veteran Center is just a really fantastic place to find all kinds of different resources for veterans.
Good for them.
Yeah.
When I started talking to Mark about this, he says, you know, these are courts that view these problems instead as, for example, viewing addiction as a moral failing, they view it as a disease, and instead of punishment, they offer treatment, and instead of indifference, they show compassion. And I told Mark right away, that's not any court I've ever been in. That's not the way it works. Am I right? The outreach is completely different in this system.
You know, I've been involved. Scott Story got me involved with the problem-solving courts, and my hat's off to Judge Enquist and everybody here, because and I think a lot of vets or anybody else who's involved in the problem-solving courts, I think initially it's kind of a shock to them. They come in because it's like a family, and it might be a stern family because a lot of times, you know, you need tough love. And I think it's very comforting to the participants, and I know it's very rewarding for those of us who volunteer our time to help, because but for the grace of God, it could have been one of us who has similar problems, and to know that there's resources there.
Right,
But as Joseph talked about, I think one of the big challenges with the vets, male or female, is them kind of letting their pride down and say, I need help.
Reluctant to reach out.
But we're here to encourage them, and just try to
Well, you do a great job. Most veterans, according to research, return home strengthened by their military service. most of them strengthened by it. They're more likely to volunteer their time, more likely to donate to charity, more likely to vote, more likely to integrate into society, more likely to support families, and to be gainful employed members of our communities. They are leaders in their neighborhoods and their communities, in fact. But a lot of courts, if there's a problem along the way for them, and I'm not reaching out and trying to drive a nail at the hammer here because I don't want to ever be in that position, but business as usual in much of the judicial system means that veterans appear before random judges who may or may not understand their unique military service and the related problems that come with it. That's true.
Right. They have unique strengths. The camaraderie that we see formed in our court and the support for the other participants is just very impressive. But they also have somewhat unique challenges. They've dealt with and seen things that most of us can't imagine.
Exactly, yeah.
And I think we need to stand up behind those who aren't necessarily strengthened, at least when they first come back, or maybe down the road. We see Vietnam veterans that never really got to deal with their issues and never got the support they needed. And to see their lives restored and their health restored, what better work could we do?
It's a remarkable thing. When I read some of this research to Tyler, he says, you know what, I want to be that guy. And I'm trying to remember who it was, and maybe it was Nathan, maybe it was Scott, but Tyler, for example, the young man in our story, is not the guy that he appeared to be on paper. And I think that's true of all of them. A lot of those guys in there, they're not the guy who have suddenly fallen into addiction or are having personal problems or are in trouble with the law. And Joseph, it might have been you, but those aren't the people that they are in their hearts. Truly, that's not them. That's not who they actually are.
Truly, this isn't something, where they're at is not some place that somebody wakes up one day and says, this is where I want to be.
Right.
It's a gradual process, of self-medicating, of not asking for help, of sitting in that pride. And then one day you find out you have no choice but to ask for help. And the help is there. It's our privilege to prop these folks up when they're at their worst. Personally, I've been through the same thing.
Really?
And I didn't really have the support of a veterans court, and so that's part of the reason I'm so passionate about it. Is this is an opportunity to get these guys back up and running and operating at full speed, as we say. And that's a great thing. That's a great thing. That's where character really shows, is when you're down.
Well, you have wonderful character. All of you are wonderful characters and have great character. And I should point out now that as of January 2017, there were 80 problem-solving courts in Colorado in 21 districts. And I don't think a lot of people know about them, but having witnessed the work that you've done, I congratulate all of you. I'm very touched by it. Great compassion. It's marvelous to see how something as simple as a card drawing or a chip drawing in court for a gift card. That's crazy. That's so popular. It's just amazing. And I got tested for Hep C. You should know. I went back. You have a wonderful practitioner back there. Just because boomers are at risk, and I spent a small time just on the fringe of the military and got hit by those pneumatic guns a lot. But you have a wonderful practitioner, and you have your own mini health fair going there as well. So there's applause. There are flag raisings. There are sometimes tears, there are giveaways, there's medical help as well. Veterans Court is quite the place. Thank you all for coming in today. I told you we would need an hour to get through this, so we've just given everybody a snapshot. But thank you for your time today, and thanks for giving up your scheduled activities to be with us. I so appreciate it.
Thank you for having us.
You bet. And thanks to all of you for watching as well.